Hello. Hey everyone. In the full tour of my house during quarantine. Welcome to my bedroom. uh, how are you guys? All right. Wednesday. I've spent most of the afternoon in my wedding dress. I was kind of hoping to do this in my wedding dress, but then um, a load of real life stuff happened, and anywho, I was cold, so I've got my starry shirt on. Oh, hi Richard. Uh, Thanks for your tweet today. That's all right. I'm always happy to tweet anybody. Um, da-da-da-da-da-da. Yes, no. Oh, goodness. So for those of you that maybe aren't on Twitter or haven't been on there today, I was trying to integrate So Fancy Wednesday. So Fancy is when you get real fancy just to sit on your sofa. So I dug my wedding dress out from under the bed today to wear it today, and it was quite fun. And I actually managed to do it up. I couldn't breathe and have it done up at the same time, but we did manage to get it done up for a while, which I feel like 5 years and a lot of jowls. Oh, that's weird, isn't it? I could be an Aardman character. My face is so stretchy. Anywho, but I feel a bit flat tonight. I'm really glad we're doing this because I was sort of staring into space and thinking, oh God, I can't do any more months of this. But it's going to be fine because we're all in it together. So, yes, I've just been reading through the chapters for today. I think the second one in particular is quite fun, although I was sort of in my head reading it with loads of accents for the new characters that are coming in, and then thinking, those are never ever going to come out of my mouth when I try and do this out loud in a moment. But we'll see what happens. I've got my cup of tea. So if I can. Oop, tea. Lovely. And, right. We'll get reading, shall we? Chapter 22. After lunch. Oh, right. So I should recap. We finished off yesterday, and Jesus was doing couples therapy for everybody, or for Sarah and Hamish. And it carries on the same day. That's all, because this next chapter starts with after lunch. So just in case you'd forgotten, if you remember correctly. So, chapter 22. After lunch, Jesus suggested that perhaps a walk might help them all to clear their heads a little. The other two agreed, Hamish because he fancied a walk and it was a beautiful afternoon, Sarah because she hadn't quite decided if it was okay to fight with Jesus yet. With Bible Jesus, she'd always felt all right about disagreeing with the trivial Bible commandments she disapproved of, stoning women, condemning sodomy, etc., etc. But that it was best to go with him on the big stuff. Be nice to people, avoid incurring plague-like conditions on one's family. Jesus thought going for a walk might help him to come up with the all-important second idea now that his first one had failed to get off the ground. He had also found that, despite the toothbrushing, the peanut butter had made his mouth feel rather sticky, and he was not sure about spitting now that people were using carpets left, right, and centre. It was also different. After 2,000 years of feeding off the happiness of human souls, it felt quite a feeling to have peanut butter lodged in the roof of your mouth. Not altogether unpleasant, but he certainly didn't want to hawk up a large gobbet and upset Sarah if the carpet turned out to be less absorbent than it looked. The last time he'd been on Earth, they'd just used rugs in strategic places, which made it a lot easier to cover up spit based misdemeanors. He thought it a little unwise that a society that had invented such a sticky, edible substance should then have covered the floor so painstakingly with fluff. They piled on their coats and headed out the front door. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. Sarah was just working up the courage to ask Jesus what they sat on when the weather was like this, when Hamish took her hand and led them in the direction of the stream. She was so enjoying this renewed affection and physical contact with him that she didn't even notice Jesus nodding upwards in the direction of the weak autumn sun. Iris Shue watched the trio head up towards the stream from the comfort of her sitting room window. The ribbon of warmth from the sun through the pane warmed her face nicely, and she smiled at the sight of Jesus leading the young couple up towards the stile. Colin had always thought Jesus would be ginger, and it comforted her to know that there hadn't been a disappointment waiting for him when he'd had to go. She stroked Duncan's buttons absent-mindedly and wondered if Colin was missing her the same way she missed him. She knew you weren't supposed to be sad when people died because they'd gone to a better place, but the fact remained you had not gone to a better place. You were in the same place with the same troubles, more responsibilities, and without the most familiar face in the world to snore you to sleep at night. Iris couldn't help but think that if God really wanted people to be monogamous, then he'd sort out entries and exits so it was all a bit neater. All this hanging about missing people seemed a little unfair. Really, she thought, if the men were going to die first, most of them, then God really ought to make mortgages more of a female thing to get your head round. Perhaps she'd bring it up with Jesus if he popped round. Are you planning to visit people in the village on their own? Asked Sarah. Hamish had surged forward, leaving her hand solo again. She didn't really mind. He looked quite happy in his own way, hitting hedges with a stick and scowling at undergrowth. I'll pop in to see the vicar tomorrow. Poor thing, I rather regret us getting off on such a sore foot. I would have gone today, but I expect he needs a little resting period to cool off. I don't suppose he was expecting me to be quite so familiar with Madonna's back catalogue. No, Sarah agreed, though I don't quite know why he went on to do Papa Don't Preach as well. He's not usually like that. He said they were thematically linked, and I'm sure he's not. I'll see him tomorrow, and we'll sort out a time I can meet the rest of your delightful neighbours. Some kind of sermon, I think. It's expected of me, isn't it? I don't know if we know quite what to expect of you, to be honest. You sound tired. Yeah, I suppose I am. Things were a little strained before this apocalypse. It's not really been easy since. Sorry, said Jesus. It's not your fault. Well, it is really. I paused the world. Right, yes, I suppose so. Really, if you think about it, everything's your fault, isn't it? Jesus smiled. Exactly. So next time you feel stressed, just try imagining how I feel. Yes. Sarah's face followed Jesus's into an easy smile, and she relaxed again. Why? Why what? Why did you stop the world? I didn't stop it. I've paused it, he corrected. Okay, why did you pause it? She conceded. You hesitated. Sarah sucked in a breath that she thought might topple her. Her head swam. I what? Oh, so it was that. Wait, you stopped it because of me? I mean, sometimes you think the world must revolve around you, but, well, I feel bloody silly now because it does. Because, wait, what? Because I hesitated? Oh, this is so embarrassing. A universe-wide game of just a minute was a little too much for Sarah to get her head round right at that moment. You hesitated. When he asked you, you hesitated. And I'm sorry, but we're all human, except me, and I just snapped. Thought it was about time I got involved. But I was going to say yes. I love Hamish with literally everything I have. I was going to say yes. Of course you were. You were going to say yes after you finished hesitating. Then there were going to be any number of problems while your conscience tried to apologize to Hamish for your family and to your family for you loving Hamish. I would never apologize for Hamish. He has nothing to apologize for. That's not what I said. Listen. He was going to say child, and then remembered he thought vicars tended to sound a bit patronizing when they called grown adults children. You get a job where you wear a dress all day and hang about in a cold old building lighting candles, and suddenly you think you're superior to the people who are keeping civilization turning. Listen to what I said. You'd be apologizing to your family for the fact that you chose Hamish. I'm not going to have this sort of thing. I thought I'd make a test case of you. If we can't sort this out and solve you two, then I'm afraid it's time for some big changes. Sarah surmised it must be the years of granary bread that had stopped her from having a stroke when Jesus told her that the fate of the world rested on her shoulders. She stood stock still, trying to make at least one of her thoughts slow down enough to read it. "So," she tried. "Yeah?" replied Jesus. "So what do I have to do? I was going to marry him anyway. I wanted to marry him. I want to marry him. More than anything, I was going to do it. But it should never have been an issue. So I've put you in a little timeout. Something a little more low key than last time I was here. I told him coming back as a baby was going to be tricky, but he said he'd make it easier to blend in. You're in a bit of a timeout, and if we can straighten this mess out, I'm happy to turn everything back on again." "Well, how do we straighten things out? Should we get married now?" "Nope, not without your father's blessing. Dad should be here by next week." "Oh, fucking hell," said Sarah. "Christ, you swear like a trooper," replied Jesus, hoping he'd got the phrase right. End of chapter 22. Oh, you're not chatting. That's all right then. I'm going to have a slurp of my tea because my tongue has gotten super dry. Not like the clothing brand. I don't have a super dry tongue. If I did, it wouldn't fit me properly. Okay. Chapter, the next one. 23? Is that where we're up to? 23. Chapter 23. The following day dawned. There was probably weather above it, but not a soul in Norton Fitzwarren noticed as they prepared feverishly for what today's meeting would bring. Jesus was to be officially announced as arrived, and the villagers were eager to know what was coming next. When were they meeting him? The Apocalypse Committee were meeting when the church bell rang, but already a few villagers were hanging around outside the hall, hoping to hear a few details prematurely to pass on. As Hamish walked up to the village hall for the meeting, he wondered what the villagers could possibly have left to argue about, seeing as all the food prep was long since sorted. He didn't doubt for a second that they would find something to squabble over. He just wondered in what direction the arguments would go. His fears ranged from the mildly embarrassing to the completely humiliating, to the ones where he half imagined he'd have to bundle Jesus out of the village to stop him turning Archie on them in retribution for their suggestions. As they settled into their seats, Mr. Baxter leant over to him from the next chair. "I'll say it now. I'm absolutely not being in charge of costumes," he said gruffly, and Hamish's worst fears were confirmed. He slumped back into his seat and prepared. Oh no, I've pressed a button and now I don't know what page we're on. Sorry, gang. It was going quite well tonight, wasn't it? But dang it. Oh, no. What did I press and what happened? Okay, that's where we were. I don't know what button I pressed. Doop dee doop dee doo. Sorry, gang. Well, hello, Sean. Is it all breaking up a bit? Well, don't worry if you have to watch later. That's all right. Whatever makes you guys happy. Right, there we go. He slumped back into his seat and prepared to take in the spectacle. Nervous too? Llewellyn Ford, an elderly man sitting on the other side of Hamish, nudged him as he settled back into the chair. Now, I seem to have named this character Llewellyn, so I thought I'd attempt Welsh. Mainly for your entertainment. We'll see what comes out, but I feel like you guys should know I'm trying to do Welsh. But I'm going to have to try and do a Welsh person talking to Hamish, which means it's going to be Welsh and Scottish alternating, so strap in. "Oh, well, you never know what's going to happen in these meetings, do you?" said Hamish. "No, I'm trying to think of a good way to tell Jesus I never supported gay marriage anyway. I'm not burning in hell for that suggestion," replied Llewellyn, proving Hamish's point in the most picturesque nutshell imaginable. "I'm not sure he's anti it, to be honest." Hamish navigated the potential minefield with care. "He seems pretty relaxed." "I'm not taking any chances," said Llewellyn stubbornly. "If it says it in the Bible, then I'm going with it in front of Jesus. I've been reading up on the rules and stuff. There's a lot I think even the vicar's been getting wrong." I guess there's a lot we've all. Oh God, now I can't do Scottish at all. Jesus Christ, this is like trying to do a Rubik's cube with my mouth. Um, I guess there's a lot we've been all been getting wrong. I think as long as I start all of Hamish's sentences with I, I can just about do the accent. You're all just coming for the accents now, aren't you? This isn't even about the storyline at all. Right, I think what I'll do is all of Hamish's lines. I'll just put the I guess there's a lot we've all been getting wrong. Llewellyn leant forward conspiratorially. If you want to get in on it, I've got a list drawn up of people in here that need stoning. It's pretty much, he glanced around the room. Yep, every woman in here. The apocalypse had really changed some people. Given that Llewellyn's daughter Karen was sitting a few seats down from Hamish, applying mascara and discussing her unfinished thesis on the female orgasm throughout history with Angela Norman, he hoped Llewellyn was joking. He wasn't certain enough to be reassured, though, and he took small solace that Sarah was not here yet, and so could potentially be spared a slow and lingering death from Llewellyn's overarm. I think I might remain a liberal for now, said Hamish uncomfortably, and tried to signal the end of the conversation by leaning back in his chair and smiling over at Karen. She was blissfully unaware of her father's murderous, if not morally charged, intentions, and smiled back before returning to her chat with Angela Norman. Purgatory appeared to have started early for Hamish as Mr. Baxter leant over from the left and started up again. I mean, will he be expecting dresses? Did your RSVP state an address? Hamish attempted levity and felt it crash back down around his shoulders under Mr. Baxter's withering stare. Well, in the Bible, they're always wearing stuff like that. I just assumed that's what you'd be expecting now. Only 'cause that's what they all wore in the Bible. Mrs. White's head turned sharply round from the row in front and bustled into the conversation heartily. It was hotter back then, so they had to. I thought the world was heating up, not cooling down, Mr. Baxter said, puzzled. It is, said Mrs. White uncertainly. Only it, a sort of double dipped. It was hot, then it got cold, now it's getting hotter again. 'Cause of the cars. Yes. Yeah, and the factories. Whilst the conversation certainly seemed to be settling the minds of the two villagers, Hamish was loath to let it continue any longer than this, in case Jesus caught wind of it and decided to smite them all on the grounds that idiocy should not be allowed to breed under any circumstances. Actually, he joined in, using a carefully placed tone somewhere between how you would speak to a very drunk man and an aggressive horse. The Bible's set in the Middle East, so it's generally hotter there all the time. Was then, is now. So the clothes that they wore reflected the different climate. Llewellyn Ford looked like he might throw up all over Hamish's shoes. The Bible was not, no, Welsh. The Bible was not, no, bloody hell. Bloody hell. How do I get into Welsh? Alright, Stace. Alright, Ness. Alright. The Bible was not set anywhere, young man. Several heads turned in their direction as Llewellyn's voice trembled with furious vibrato. The Bible happened. It was a series of occurrences. Oh, I actually said the word occurrence. What's an occurrence? It was a series of occurrences, not a storytelling exercise. It was not set anywhere. I apologise, proffered Hamish. My mistake. It was a poor choice of words. Of course, it was not set at any time. I just meant the action took place. Action? Boomed Llewellyn, but was interrupted by the arrival of Sarah to the table already containing the vicar, and the vicar's rise to his feet. The meeting had begun. Welcome to this very special gathering of the Apocalypse Committee, and a warm welcome to those villagers who have decided to also join us on this momentous day. As many of you will have doubtless already heard, Sarah and Hamish have returned from their expedition with Jesus Christ. Sarah and Hamish have found Jesus. The room was tense, hanging on the vicar's every word. He continued. So far, Jesus has been staying with Sarah and Hamish, who have very kindly agreed to put him up. Martin Young scoffed. Something the matter, Martin? Asked the vicar. Well, I hardly think they have much say in it, do they? If Jesus asks you to stay, then you let him. It's a no-brainer. What's their option? Hell? Not exactly a subtle choice, is it? Ah, right. Well, thank you. I shall assume then that if Jesus tires of Sarah and Hamish's spare room, he will be most welcome at the Young household, said the vicar sternly. That's a very good point, barked Llewellyn. What is? Asked the vicar, feeling the control of the meeting slipping away from him with every second. Does he not mind staying under the roof of a couple fornicating out of wedlock? Aye, well, we haven't actually done it. Well, oh no, that was Irish, wasn't it? Oh, bloody hell. Oh, you can't be expected to learn this many accents while the world's over. Um, I just fit. Oh no, I physically can't remember how to make noises. Oh dear. Oh, it's something to do this, isn't it? Scott, I have actually done it while he's been There we go. That's it, isn't it? Channel Lorraine Kelly. Hello, I'm Carol Smiley. Thank you for coming to tonight's edition of Changing Rooms. I'm Smiley, Smiley, Carol Smiley. We haven't actually done it while he's been staying there, said Hamish mildly, and the meeting flew into uproar. Only Sarah laughed. She caught Hamish's eye, and they shared a quiet moment there in amongst the tediums and vitriols of the villagers' burgeoning debates. The vicar banged on the table and slowly teased the attention of the villagers back onto his address. Jesus is nothing but grateful for the place to stay and the kind hospitality of Sarah and Hamish. I think we all have a lot of learning to do over the next few days as you get to meet him. I've already met him, said Mrs. Shue smugly. Yes, we're all very aware of that, snipped Mrs. White, still exceedingly put out by having been bested by her arch rival. I met him the first minute he got to the village, on the road that I live on. He's ever so charming, said Iris in a relaxed, luxurious voice, enjoying every creamy moment of superiority. He has hands just like my Colin. Oh, I'm sure he was just delighted to be interrupted on his way home from such an ordeal, Mrs. White sneered. What ordeal? Asked Mr. Baxter. What on earth happened to Jesus? It's not necessarily what on earth, Mr. Baxter. It's what between heaven and earth. It can't be easy getting all the way from heaven to earth, can it? And the last thing you want when you get here is some woman standing in the middle of the road, blocking your path to a decent cup of tea. I offered him tea, snapped an outraged Mrs. Shue. Down my tea before it goes cold, speaking of tea, because cold tea's gross. Nobody needs to see that angle. I thought heaven was in our hearts, asked a confused Karen Ford. I didn't feel him come bursting out of my heart. I might have done, said Nigel from the village shop. What night did he say he arrived? Because I had some awful chest pains the night after the line dance. That could have been him. That was heartburn from all the fizzy you drank at the line dance, and you know it was, grumped Beryl from the village shop, clearly still unimpressed with Nigel's sugar-induced rendition of Cotton Eye Joe, complete with dance moves. Oh, shut up, Siri. What are you talking about? A brief silence fell, and the vicar remembered he was supposed to be chairing the meeting. Right, so what I wanted to do today was to inform you all that Jesus would like to give a formal public address to meet you all. We thought tomorrow might be good, to give you all time to prepare. Prepare what? Asked Llewellyn suspiciously. Well, yourselves, answered the vicar. Is this it? Shrieked Beryl. Is this Judgment Day? Tomorrow, corrected Martin Young. Tomorrow would be Judgment Day. Today would be Judgment Eve. He turned to the vicar. Is it Judgment Eve? Beryl whimpered. Nothing at all has been mentioned about judging anyone. In fact, Jesus seems very keen for you all to like him and judge him well. He's preparing a speech of introduction for tomorrow, and will hopefully have some answers for us all about the next steps during this difficult time, and how he intends to proceed from here. "What's he like?" asked Angela Norman from beside Karen Ford. The vicar said nothing. The vicar had nothing prepared to answer them quick enough. Sarah saw him falter and jumped in. "Well, he's everything you'd expect him to be," she smiled. The congregation relaxed. The vicar recovered and said a silent prayer of thanks to Sarah before wondering whether Jesus had heard him. That would be an awkward prayer to explain. "So, if you would like to attend Jesus' address, please meet back here tomorrow at around noon. If it is cloudy or you're struggling with sun times still, listen out for the bell ringing and the meeting will begin promptly after it has rung 12 times. Any questions?" Remarkably, no one had any questions at all, and the villagers were dismissed to go back to their houses and await the following day's revelations. Hamish waited behind for Sarah at the village hall and wished he felt happier. Why was this so hard? He hoped sleep would come quickly that night, although he expected it would not. It was the ultimate Christmas Eve. There we go. That's the end of chapter 23. Um, you're enjoying the accents. I can sort of Welsh, I think, might be the strongest I could do. Um, that was fun. I figure we'll wait until tomorrow because if they have to wait overnight for the meeting, then I think we should too. That's only fair. Otherwise, it's not very friendly, is it? So we'll call it a day and we'll reconvene Thursday for more story fun. Be safe, keep your blood sugar up and go outside and exercise whenever you can and be nice to people. Lots of love. Bye.